describe Malec in 3 words?
3 words. I would say majestic, soulmates, stubborn. It's been a long journey to finally now be able to promote this this final season. From when we filmed it to now, it's been quite a while. So I'm just happy that the fans get to see it, and we get to see it too as well. You know, when a show ends, you have these mixed feelings, and what's been nice about this process is that we, like, especially now doing promotion, we get to see the cast again, because you know, we've been seeing each other in and out. But the nice part is also just the enthusiasm from the fans. It's been really incredible. And to have it finally air the first episode. For this particular show, I think if you put the sci-fi and fantasy aside, you know, they're going through real struggles with family, with friendship, with relationships, and a lot of times struggling with identity and being themselves, particularly with Magnus Bane. And you know, he has this quality where there's so much empathy, but also there's this level of insecurity as well for someone who's lived that long. To me, that doesn't speak to anyone who's lived hundreds of years, but someone who's maybe in their 20s or 30s or 40s. There is this element of, you know, you've been on this earth for a while and you're still insecure. So I think that is on a larger scope where we can see how people can identify with him. You know, he's a proud bisexual character that he doesn't use it to define him, but what's beautiful is that he also takes shape of his own life, and we get to see throughout his life little bits and pieces of the people that he's loved, the people that has kind of affected him in a way that allowed him to find finally his you know, his true love. And I think for the LGBTQ, you know, queer kids and adults that are watching, I think it's nice for them to see someone that's not promiscuous, like, you know, stereotypically what, you know, bisexual characters are when they're on screen. They're usually looked at a certain way, like they can't hold a relationship. And I think it's nice to see this displayed on TV, and to know that you can have this, you know, and also for people who aren't in that community can watch it and like just love it and know that they're just watching 2 people in love. I always look at it as like, on the grand scheme of things, why does it matter? They should just, like, if these 2 people are happy, they should be happy, and we get to see that unfold while saving demons, and you know, while having the talk of immortality and mortality, so layered on top of all that makes it more complex, but also interesting to watch. Crazy Rich Asians has allowed, in a weird way, kind of like acceptance in Hollywood, and how long it took. That still blows my mind to finally see at like award shows these women who are not just gorgeous but also incredibly talented, have a wonderful presence. To see Michelle Yeoh, who's been in this game for so long, who has gone to the Oscars, and Gemma Chan, Constance Wu, like to see them be so glamorous, and hopefully people at home can see him in a different light. You know, I think that's what's really special, and I'm just so happy to finally see that. I think it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than sometimes I think, because it's this new generation that's seeing these kids that won't know what a struggle it was like even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When you're talking about like Asian masculinity and how it's not the fact that Asians aren't sexy, your culture shouldn't define if you're sexy or not. What's end up happening is that even if a man is sexy, then the Asian gets to put on top of it, and then that doesn't make you sexy. And that's the sad part that needs to change in films and media and how it's perceived. Now, obviously, like, without going back to the history, there's reasons for that happened. And I think the more we can explore without it feeling like a history channel, and put it in interesting shows and interesting characters and in film, I think then audiences will be able to realize, like, oh, I've been thinking this way because I've been told to think this way. And then that does damage to a lot of, whether it be actors or just people in general walking around the streets. It does have an effect on how they feel about themselves. I have seen the change in how people cast things. I would say before Crazy Rich Asians, there was like almost like this thing of like, oh yeah, we need diversity. It's almost the numbers game. It's like, well, we need to, you know, let's bring in an Asian guy for this particular role or whatever. that's different. And now I've been opening some scripts, and what's nice to see, it's like they're very specific. They're like, well, we want a Chinese American that has this background, and then there's this whole backstory that they're trying to develop. And I think that's when the change happens, when people are doing their research or bringing people onto the projects that behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes, that are doing their due diligence on trying to make it as authentic as possible without just through their lens, but through other people's lens that can allow this to feel like a real person as opposed to their idea of who this person's background or what their background is. And I think that's when the change happens, and it takes movies to just go give one glimpse of access to this huge continent that doesn't represent, like this Crazy Rich Asians doesn't represent all of Asia or Asian people. It's just one small part. And I think what's important is now that people see like there's interesting stories right here. What else is there in these different cultures, and not just in the Asian culture, but hopefully in the Latin community and in the Middle Easterns. And like there's just so much that I think it's opening up. And at the end of the day too, it's good business. People are coming out and watching this. Like it's nuts.